Is this the Minority Report in reality? Is the social credit score the end of free will? I want to see your papers, please. I don't know. It's getting kind of crazy out there. Let's get into it.
Crossing all the lines to get to you, get to you. We were hard to find, from a dream to life, swimming in the blue.
Is China's social credit system coming to America? China's social credit system is a government program being implemented nationwide to regulate its citizens' behavior based on a point system. You're going to get points. Are you a good little boy or girl? We're going to give you points. We're going to ding you if you're bad. So let's look at both sides of this. It's interesting. Chairwoman Maxine Waters and Democrats on the House Financial Services Committee are considering dramatic overhaul of the credit reporting system within the United States. It sounds wonderful on the surface. The legislation, the Comprehensive Credit Act and the Protecting Your Credit Score Act of 2021. Man, that has a nice ring to it. It sounds like the Patriot Act with some of the stuff I like, but they slid in a lot of other stuff between the lines. They must have a think tank. So this was passed out of committee before the beginning of the coronavirus pandemic. The bills were previously introduced by members of the Democratic Squad and would implement a new system similar to that of China. So we're going to mirror China. So I talked to influential people in the United States. I made some calls abroad, and I did a lot of reading on this. So let me tell you something. Let me be crystal clear. We're looking at both sides of this. So having a system, this is it right here, having a system to check your financial worthiness is critically different from having a credit system to determine your social worthiness. The metrics for determining your worthiness for finance are definitely quite black and white, but social worthiness, my social worthiness, is a much more gray area, I think you'd agree. Do you think an unelected authoritarian government like China will be neutral in assessing credit scores to citizens who do not toe the party line? Is a social score with your personal ID much different than this? What do you think? What is a social credit score? Let's look at what Wikipedia says. Everyone loves Wikipedia. They're the holy grail. So the social credit system is a national blacklist being developed by the government of the People's Republic of China under General Secretary of the Chinese Communist Party, Xi Jinping. He's got great hair. I'll give him that. He's got great hair. So the Ping's administration, the program initiated regional trials back in 2009 before launching a national pilot with 8 credit scoring firms in 2014. It was first introduced formally by the Chinese Premier Wen on October 20, 2011. During one of the state's council meetings. So in 2018, these efforts were centralized under the People's Republic of China with participation from the 8 firms. So they want to roll this bad boy out by 2020. It was intended to standardize the assessment of citizens and business, economic, and social reputation, or social credit. Yeah, it's finance, but then it's skewed over to social. So the social credit system is an extension. Make me very clear. It's an extension to the existing financial credit reporting system in China. It's the new one. It's the social, not the financial. So critics of the system claim it oversteps the rule of law and infringes on the legal rights of residents and organizations, especially the rights and reputations of these people, the rights to privacy as well as personal dignity, and the system may be a tool for comprehensive government surveillance and for suppression of dissent from the Chinese Communist Party, CCP. You think they don't like you? You're not towing the party line? What do you think is going to happen to you? So the target eventually is that the government system will be countrywide, with businesses given a unified social credit code and citizens an identity number. How's that different than this? An identity number. All linked to permanent record. So if you go to the Credit China website and you have a credit code, you can type that in and pull up credit records. Explains this lady that I've been following, Hoffman, on this issue. So individuals will have ID-linked codes. So in her opinion, it's less of a score, she says, and it's more of a permanent record. Some reports talk about a blacklist that is part of the official government's social credit system, which means if you owe the government money or they don't like you, for example, you can lose certain rights. That's different between getting a low social credit score and being blacklisted by the government, such as refusing to pay a fine. I watched a video, a young lady went in to buy a beer and they said, and they had the whole camera thing and their metrics on her face, and because she bought the beer and didn't buy the protein drink, her score is going to be lower. And let's say that would affect her getting a loan. So what happens if you're blacklisted? Lu Ha is a journalist in China writing about censorship and government corruption. He was writing about that, talking about the Chinese Communist Party. Because of his work, he was arrested and fined and blacklisted. He was named on a list of dishonest personal subjects to enforcement by the Supreme People's Court and could not qualify to fly, buy a plane ticket. He was banned from traveling some trains, buying property, and even taking out a loan. This guy was cut off from the world. So there was no file, no police warrant, no official advance notification, no due process. They just cut him off, he said. And I was once entitled, he told the Globe. So, this is quite scary if you look at it and you dig into it. So what's really scary is there's nothing you can do about it. You can report it to no one. You are stuck in the middle of nowhere. Minority Report. Gone. White. So the phased social credit system or social credit score is relatively unknown to most Americans. But in the People's Republic of China, the communist government has been developing such a system for the last decade and are looking to roll this bad boy out nationwide in 2021. They really, when you saw how they amped up the cameras, the surveillance, the AI, and how far they are, it's out there. So the Chinese government intends to use social media data, surveillance, and purchasing trends to develop a score for its citizens to gauge their buying, what they're buying in the state. And if you're not buying things that the Chinese Communist Party doesn't like, you're cut off. So presumably, the better the score, the more benefits citizens are entitled to relatively from the government. So conversely, a bad score would severely handicap your life, punishing you for your social manipulative behavior, either real or perceived based on your purchases, who you're hanging out with, what you're talking about, social media. So at its worst, that gives the Chinese government the ability to wield tech companies as a weapon to ultimately stifle the commerce, travel, and social interaction of those that are blacklisted. In other words, full dictatorial power, full power of the government. Of course, China has never been a pillar of freedom and liberty. It comes as no surprise that is developing a sophisticated system to crush dissent. Think about the Hong Kong protests have brought much of China's reality to the forefront of international discussion. Look at that situation, and that should clear the air for you. So China's social credit system expands the idea to all aspects of life, judging citizens' behavior and trustworthiness. Caught jaywalking? You're caught jaywalking? You don't pay a court bill? You play your music too loud on that train? You're playing that music too loud? You're not reading a paper they like? You could lose certain rights, such as booking a flight, train ticket, getting that job that you dreamed about. See, it's not a Chinese phenomenon from the research, says an associate at the Mankato Institute of China Studies, nor is the use and abuse of aggregated data for analysts of the behavior. But if the Chinese system does come together as envisioned, it would still be something very unique. She says, and it's a good thing, it's both unique and part of the global trend. We need to do it. Okay. We're looking at both sides. China's website, and you look at the website and the entity of the credit score, you can type in and pull up credit records, explains the other side Hoffman. Individuals will have ID link codes. It's less of a score, and it's more of a record and an ID number. It's a record. So why is China building this? It's all about building trust, says the Chinese government. The 2014 document, when this all started, describing the government's plans, notes that as trust keeping is insufficiently rewarded, the cost of breaking trust tends to be low. It's all about trust. It's all about trust. So here's a statement from the SCS. Take a look at this. Over the next 5 years, and likely will be beyond, social credit is set to be used as a tool to improve the government's capacity and domestic market conditions, as a means of promoting fair competition, strengthening market supervision, and encouraging law adherence. So in the long term, it is clear that social credit fits into the CCP's grand design for data-driven governance, covering all spheres of society. So you think they're going to have more power at the top? Going to find out about those financial deals under the table? What remains unclear is how integrated, far-reaching, and effective this system will be in practice, and if or how soon we can expect, ambitious social credit policy goals to turn into reality. So the other side of this, Hoffman says, I'm not buying it. Hoffman isn't buying this argument, says it's such the system is about government power. If solving problems was the real goal, the CCP would not need social credit to do it, she says, right? That makes sense. So China's social credit system is a state-driven program designed to do one thing: to uphold and expand the Chinese Communist Party's power, and no dissent from what they say. So in a country like China, the system is necessarily top-down. Of course, top-down. The communist government can't afford for their citizens to realize what individual freedoms offer. Hong Kong. So the social credit system and the police state that implements it is designed to stifle the internal drive for democracy. This is why the stakes are so high for the Chinese Communist Party in the fight against Hong Kong. Beijing has to control the narrative or risk mass dissent and protest on the mainland. It's clear as day. So ultimately, Congress can only act in response to public outrage. They effectively need public outrage to push legislation, right? So this is why you always see a reinvigorated push for gun control rights after mass shootings, for example, right? So true, when you look at this left-right paradigm stuff, the left is better expressing outrage. The right has always been more interested in keeping to themselves. But we see where this has gotten us to the cusp of a social and economic tyranny. So the electorate has to stand up and speak out against the erosion of our rights. In my opinion, we have to fight to prevent the establishment or, our own probably vision of this social credit system is upon us. It's here. So some would argue that, you have the vaccine passport, and that's going to go to a social credit system. The United States government wants to mirror what they're doing in China. So I'm just looking at both sides of it, both sides of the argument. One side says it's good because it's monitoring financial records. It's going to stop corruption. But let's be clear, because it's ambiguous. It's a social credit system. It's not a financial. And it's clearly stated from the research that I read about what China is doing. It started as a financial, and it's morphed into a social credit worthiness system. And that's what they want to do here. So one side would argue and say it's good, it's going to stop corruption, it's going to keep everyone honest. The other side would say it's invasion of privacy rights and dignity. And if they don't like you, if you're dissenting from a policy of the government, they could shut you off. That's what China's doing right now. The videos were astonishing that I watched. I'll include one in the link to the video of what this is involved, but we want to mirror what they're doing. I have some concerns about it. And it's quite concerning because it puts a lot of power in the few, and on the surface you could say this is a good thing, but it could be easily manipulated. And we are in a surveillance state. I think some of that's good to stop crime in these things. But when you have these tools and AI, people at the top can manipulate this power and go after people and shut people down that have opinions that they don't like. That's the bottom line. And that makes me a little nervous. So, just wanted to put that out there and share that. Social credit system coming to the United States. What do you think? Take care. Be kind and creative.